What's up, rabbit hole dwellers? Welcome back to yet another episode here at Rabbit Hole Stories. Today we had Prashanth on today from the Bringin Bitcoin Lightning, and from India he was calling from. So it was nice having that insight over from India because he was talking a lot about regulation, what Bitcoin's like in India. So it's nice having that insight. Joel, what did you take from it, bud?
It was an interesting conversation because yes, he's from India, but he's actually moving back to Europe. He explains this in the
Mm,
episode, and the main focus of the business will actually be Europe with instant euro payment and basically getting Bitcoin in as many European hands as possible. So I thought that was funny, like starting out in India, going to Europe, going back, and not going back in, to bring that to people.
mm.
And yeah, if you have a sour taste with regulation, we do too. But I think we had some great insights today as how it can actually help. And we don't want to waste any more of your time. So enjoy the episode with Prashant. And as always, stay curious, guys. Prashant, it's been a busy day. How has it been on your end? And where are you joining us from?
I'm joining from Bangalore, India, and it's been a busy day as well. I'm in good way because got a lot of things done today, and I'm happy.
Nice. And I mean, a busy day always means you get stuff done, right? And you're working on
Right,
something. And you
that's
are the
true.
CEO from Bringin. Can you maybe explain to the listeners what Bringin is, what you guys do, and give us maybe like, the 2 minute elevator pitch?
Sure. So Bringin is a European Bitcoin company. We build tools and applications to help people spend Bitcoin instantly and reliably. So, like converting Bitcoin to euro and getting it to bank account is not as easy because of the compliance and bank blocking users transactions. So we want to make it completely reliable by providing IBAN accounts to every users and also by providing debit cards that users can spend Bitcoin from any wallet and liquidate
Mm.
Bitcoin instantly. And I believe spending Bitcoin is one of the key factors for Bitcoin to be used as payments in future, and it aids in Bitcoin adoption as well.
Nice. And for the
Hey,
listeners, if Ian joined here, we had some technical difficulties, but he's managed to get on. So we're back with the original gang now.
Gen X difficulties. Thank you for joining us here at Rabbit Hole Stories, mate. And I just heard the tail end of what you was just explaining about using Bitcoin and spending
Right.
or transacting in Bitcoin, right? And that's something I really actually agree with
Mhm.
fundamentally because the dominant, well, I wouldn't say the dominant, but you often hear hodl, don't spend your Bitcoin, hold it on
Right.
for dear life, blah, blah, blah. But, yes, that's one use case for Bitcoin. Certainly it is, of course it is. But I believe that in order to grow the ecosystem, and I mean, the white paper itself says Bitcoin a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So,
That's right.
the use case is really a peer-to-peer system. So I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like Bitcoin has been used as storage of value, and that's great. I mean, Bitcoin is a great storage of value because of its deflationary property and mainly because of deflationary property. But and you can take the self custody of your own funds and debanking. It's all great, but Bitcoin is also an amazing payments network, like peer to peer, as you just explained. It's free, it's secure, it's open source, and it's global, and that's important as well. So using Bitcoin as a settlement layer to even move fiat across, it's a great use case and improved efficiency in present payment system over any debit cards or Visa Mastercard network or Wise, Western Union or SEPA or Wire. So the more Bitcoin is used as a payment network and Bitcoin used for payment, it makes the payments more efficient and moving funds across more efficient. And this, of course, like payments always involves two people and it always has a network effect and adoption actually happens when it's used as payments.
Yes, and Prashant, we before we get started down the offerings on your business side of things, how did you actually discover Bitcoin? What made you stick around? And then follow up, what got you interested in Europe? Because as you said in the intro, you're based in India for now.
Right.
So yeah, what got you started in Bitcoin, and why did you decide to focus on Europe mainly?
Right. Yeah, sure. So it was back in 2017, and like why 2017? Like Bitcoin got a lot of attention because of the price hike. So it is my friend who was like super hyped about Bitcoin, is too much into internet, always exploring stuff, and then was trying to tell this. technology called Bitcoin, and then it's a digital gold, and he was trying to explain me uh, how this is something innovative and it's superb. I didn't quite understand it well, but then I didn't quite, like take a deeper look. I just kept it aside for another 2 years. I continued with my career as an engineer building products for like online internet consumers, like basic consumer products. But later, when I wanted to, like, I took this book, Mastering Bitcoin, and then I started studying, and then that's it. And after understanding how the Bitcoin actually works, right, with UTXOs and then having ownership, public key, private key, cryptography, and it was just it made me think. So I'm not a person who consumes a lot of information on internet. So my orange pilling was not based on people talking about Bitcoin and how Bitcoin revolutionized things, but it was more of thinking and how Bitcoin could possibly be a better payments. And I was like, like I took a week or two, like just thinking and how this is possible and what implication it could have. And later, there are very lot of companies who's already building things on Bitcoin apps to get it to users, right? Like there's a technology which is amazing, and now there needs to be applications to get it to masses. And then I wanted to work in one of those companies, early stage startups, of course. And that's when I started looking on AngelList, putting blockchain as a filter. And then I was fortunate enough to find this company called Lastbit. And the founders were from India. And they were at the time building Bitcoin Lightning app, like Blue Wallet for Europe, because the regulations were not exactly as clear as today, but there were also regulations, unlike in India, like people, like the government really didn't want the Bitcoin to be used as a mode of payments. So working in Lastbit, of course, I'm an engineer. I work on backend, so building payment systems and then getting deeper into Bitcoin, understanding how it works. And it was never really any other coins. It was like I learned Bitcoin, I joined a Bitcoin company, I started working in Bitcoin, and then it's always been like that. So, and my exposure to Lightning was also instant. It's like, as I told, last bit was building payments app on Bitcoin Lightning. So it was Bitcoin for a couple of months, and then instantly building Lightning wallets, managing channels and stuff.
Was your immediate, because you were talking about 2017, right, when you first got into Bitcoin, was the price an incentive for you to first initially get on board, or was it something else?
Like when I actually started like learning about Bitcoin, because the price was like 3K, like in 2019. It was not actually like 18K. It was more of curiosity on technology, because my friend who told me about Bitcoin was in the industry. So we were really good friends, and he was always he was in the industry, and he kept me updated about. And every time we met, he talked about Bitcoin, and then that obviously we made me more curious and then wanted to learn. And I also wanted to change my career. Like we were a team of two building some products, and it didn't turn out to get enough distribution. So it was the time I wanted to change my career, or like like join a startup, and that's when I wanted to work in Bitcoin companies after reading about Bitcoin.
So it was really, I know there's the meme, I'm in it for the tech, but with you it really is true. And I'm interested now, as I said, to the follow-up question. So you got started in Bitcoin, you discovered it through a friend, kept sort of in touch, got right into the thick of things, realizing it's a great option to actually have peer-to-peer trade. Where does the Europe part come in? Were you living in Europe at that time, or how did that come about?
Yeah, that's interesting. So the thing is, like as I told, the founder was based in India, and most of the people, like most of the team, was based in India, various parts of India. The founder himself was studying in Zurich, Switzerland, and then he acquired his masters to build this company. At the time when I joined, the team was quite remote, and they were trying to build a technical team in Bangalore. That's when I joined. And like in 2020, the COVID, and the plan was to move to Europe, like setting up an office in Latvia at the time. But due to COVID, we had to stay in Bangalore, and the founder came back to Bangalore. So we got a house. We all the three engineers stayed together. We it was good time, like all of us building that together. It was quite productive actually. So and when so yeah, so like always the product was always catered to European market because of the regulations. It was very easier to operate in European market because there was regulations. Unlike India, there were no regulations in gray area. It's neither legal nor illegal. It's like it's the fate of the company really lies on banks, and if they want to not work with Bitcoin companies providing on and off ramp, it almost didn't help us exist. I mean, it didn't allow us to exist. So Europe was a safer option back then.
One thing I was hoping to ask you during this episode was we often hear a lot of dialogue about Bitcoin globally, and we get a lot of narratives around what is going on in Africa and things like or South America. But we don't often hear much about Bitcoin in India, or I haven't really come across much. And is there something you can talk to me about how the economy works there and what sort of struggles people are having there with fiat money and how Bitcoin can help people in in India to sort of you know become more self-sovereign and
Right.
independent from the system?
Yeah, sure. Bitcoin makes a lot more sense to countries like India because it's a developing country and the currency is not quite strong. The inflation has been higher recently. Like the INR pegged against euro, it's like one euro is like 90 INR, and it was like 75 like 3 years ago. And things started getting very expensive. So it makes total sense for people here to hold their funds in Bitcoin than INR. Although, like, so the banking system or the regulations in India work totally different, and people are just adopting online payments. So recently, something happened in India. Like they introduced a payment system called UPI, Unified Payment Interface, which allows users to send funds from one bank account to another bank account instantly, and that could be as less than a cent, right? And that enabled a lot of small merchants to start accepting online payments. Before that, people were transacting with only cash, and today the cash transaction is almost non-existent. People always just like they have QR code and people can pay from bank to bank instant payments. So all the payment system is good because of the UPI which is introduced. The inflationary aspect of INR, Indian national rupees, is still there. So Bitcoin makes more sense as saving technology in India because the payments kind of like it's not that inefficient. Like Bitcoin has a lot less to do considering India as a nation and between peer-to-peer payments between two individuals. But it definitely makes sense to hold Bitcoin instead of INR.
Sorry, I think my mic was
Sorry, I had a bit.
delayed as well.
Yeah, I had a bit of trouble unmuting my microphone. Um, I'm interested because I have met a few people who are not from India, but spend a lot of time there.
Right.
Also did work with Indian businesses and partners, and mainly predominantly big banks. And if I remember correctly, was that 2 years ago when there was sort of an implication of a 30% tax on the broader crypto thing, but obviously they included Bitcoin.
Right.
And how is it going in terms of oversight by the government with things like CBDCs? Because you mentioned it sort of did that evolution of digital payments are sort of now a thing in India, and from what you say, pretty easy to connect banks with each other and ecosystems. Do they already go that far, or as far as we see over here in Europe, where it's a daily topic and they really want their CBDCs, or how is it? How is it over there?
It's not uh, that big of a topic here because, as I told, India is kind of, very early phases of even getting regulations for allowing companies to work safely with bank in a very compliant way. So I can imagine only that when the regulations are clear around like on and off ramp with INR, and only then they would think of having their own CBDC. I'm not sure entirely about the CBDC scene because, as I told, I consume a lot less information, but regarding regulations, it's to come. And right now, what the thing is, we can't use Bitcoin. Like unlike in Europe, you can't use Bitcoin to buy things, and that's Bitcoin You can do peer to peer. You can buy things with your friends, like, but Bitcoin cannot be used as a currency to buy and purchase items in India.
S- So a business wouldn't be able to basically put the stickers out and say you can buy with Bitcoin here.
Uh, no, that's not possible. So you can't buy things
Oof.
in India with Bitcoin yet. So it can be like bought, and when you sell, you can
Mm-hmm.
uh, you have to pay capital gain tax like in most of the
Mm.
countries, which is 30%, but it's not a legal currency to buy things yet. So there's a lot of to and fro making it legal, and then people applying cases in the court, and then like there's a lot of things going on, but it's always to and fro. But at the moment, it's not legal to buy things with Bitcoin in India. But of
Oh
course,
wow.
like I do peer to like I buy things with peer to peer. I ask my friends to accept Bitcoin, and they do, and I get things done.
Sure, sure, sure. And from the looks of it, you said they're not. I mean, regulation is not there yet. To be frank, if you look even to other countries over here, it's not even clear, even though they say it is. Um, I'm interested. What is your approach to regulation generally? Because this is maybe a good bridge to get
Right.
into what you guys do with Bringin. Um, because on the one hand, we obviously don't want this, draconian oversight that some of the EU officials seem to be pushing out. But then on the other side, you always want some convenience for your users. So, what's
Right.
your stand with regulation? And do you think, or do you hope that you can find a middle ground to get Bitcoin to people faster?
Yeah. So like the ideal world is everyone accepting Bitcoin, getting paid in Bitcoin or earning in Bitcoin, and like using Bitcoin to purchase things. So that's the ideal world. But till we get there, and that's like in that world, you can use self custody and make peer to peer payments, and you don't need to touch euros, and you don't have to do KYC. But till we get to that point, we'll have to touch euros, and as long as you touch fiat currencies, it's always good to be regulated, because fiat system is highly regulated system, and they would like to know where fiat came from and track the source and stuff like that. So it's like, if not abiding the compliance, it's more of it's a battle which becomes unnecessary, like fighting against the compliance, instead of being like it's more easier to be compliant and provide easy to use tools which making things possible, like liquidating Bitcoin, or like liquidating Bitcoin instantly allows people to get paid in Bitcoin completely, and because they have no stress, whenever they want to liquidate they can liquidate, and the reliability aspect really matters. And if it gets harder for them to liquidate, and merchants around them are not accepting Bitcoin yet, so that's like you just buy a certain portion of your income in Bitcoin, and that can be a lot lesser than what you would have if you could spend Bitcoin, right? So it's very important to have this spendability of Bitcoin, or even like safer off ramp and reliable off ramp. And whenever you think about Bitcoin being converted to euro, that's a very highly regulated space where like like the regulators wants to know the source of Bitcoin before it's converted to euro.
For me, this whole regulation around money, income, and all that kind of stuff boils down to obviously tax, right? And the
Right.
state being able to accumulate funds from your hard work, or they want oversight over your transactions, right? To sort of maybe um, influence or maybe potentially shut down payment rails if it doesn't align with their kind of agenda, or their overview of what is appropriate in the economy. And recently, I think it comes into force today or tomorrow, and even in the UK, they're changing the regulations around your earnings. So, like, if you go on to the second-hand websites that you listing things on, like eBay or Vimto or whatever, Vintage or whatever it's called, and even if you rent out Airbnb, for example, HMRC will, or the Revenues and Customs will be able to have view of your earnings and apply that to your tax as well. So obviously, as we venture into this further down this death spiral of fiat money, the more tighter their grip is getting to try and get the income that they need to sustain themselves in some way. So I think the more draconian and the more tyrannical the regulations become, the more bullish I think that is for Bitcoin. You know, people start to recognize the freedom that lays within it. And I don't know if that's something you agree with or you've got other opinions about.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like I totally agree with that because like like it's being an individual, being part of a nation, which gives some perks of security, like especially like there are perks. I mean, of course, like we could have a nation or an like a place where we're independent and we have a citadel like with a circular economy, and that that's a true freedom, right? But it comes at the cost of being self-sovereign and being able to like survive without the support of like like it's more about community and community working together. It's a lot of efforts in doing so, and this government or state is being evolved over time, and is is in accordance with evolution, right? And the evolution could change, the pattern could change, the states and the nations could change in coming days. But at this moment, this is what state we are in. We are part of a state, and like we are not self-sovereign completely because we compromise our entire freedom for certain perks because of the system which has evolved over time. And though, as I told, like more and more self-custodying Bitcoin will help us move towards that self-sovereignty. And like it's gonna take time, like to have this community grow. And when the community grows, you have more like-minded people, and you could make it. It takes time for the evolution, and then giving it time is really important, and not rushing towards, like like going against the system which is being evolved over time is. And I'm not sure if it's in line with a lot of people how they think, but at least for a short period of time, working with the regulations, making it possible to self-custody Bitcoin and spend and live, making it a lot easier for people to live is important. And eventually, with a lot of self-custody and community growing, we can see the evolution of states.
I think you mentioned you read Mastering Bitcoin as one of your first books, right? And that's quite an in-depth, complex book by Andreas Antonopoulos, right? And
Right.
is that someone you admire in the space, or is there anything that sort of sparks your interest around Bitcoin in any particular direction? I know obviously you're building engineering side of things and stuff, but is there any other interest you got in Bitcoin?
Uh, as I told again, I more into technology and people's interest in ideology. I kind of like, as I told, I'm too much less consuming information on internet about how people talk about Bitcoin. Of course, I talk to users and I see what they think about it, and it's more important for me to talk to users and understand what they're thinking about it, so that we can make a better solution for them. But yeah.
Yeah, great. So I'm interested, if you say you're more interested in the tech side of things, do you then also start to, play with whatever's new? Like, remember, when did Arc came out? Like, close to a year ago at this point, like
Right.
suddenly everyone had Burak on, and like everyone was speaking about it, that now it sort of disappeared again. And then you sometimes have these experimental things like or I mean, it's not experimental, it actually works, like is it the Bolt exchange that now does the lightning to liquid swap and these things? Like, are you
Right.
someone who, if you see this on, I don't know, X or online somewhere, and you go like, oh, I'll start playing around with this as well?
No, not really. Especially when my
Okay.
teammates like they're into Bitcoin a lot more than I am in technical side, because it's about a lot lesser as you start the company. You have a lot of more responsibility and then
Mm-hmm.
a lot less things. But when I say I'm more into technology, it's more like I believe in Bitcoin because of its technology. Like like I see this payment systems, and then I see the compliance, how it works, and the movements of funds, and how Bitcoin works as well, right? So this as a projection, like how Bitcoin can be a better payment system. So when I meant Bitcoin as a technology and how it can evolve,
Mm-hmm.
it's more about how I think the technology itself and can be a better payment system. As an engineer, I think more of an efficient payment system and a monetary system uh, over the present fiat.
One of the reasons we actually connected for the podcast interview was one of your coworkers who did actually, I can't remember if it was either a blog post by me or a tweet, but I do remember the topic. So I spoke about venture capital money in Europe and, how it's basically dried out because we don't have such a high investment strategy in Europe compared to the US, and that European Bitcoin businesses need to do better. And with you guys, obviously the focus being in Europe, what have your challenges been with venture capital? Are you, trying to raise? Are you speaking to investors? And if so, can you give an inside scoop of like how Bringing is actually going on about it and what your ideas are there?
Yeah, for sure. So building a Bitcoin company is kind of like it's different. The approach has to be different for sure because of the market conditions, right? And the market is not as huge as any other like businesses would operate in. So it's like we always intend to play a long-term game, and then it's like I bootstrapped the company almost for a year, and then we raise only so much money and then scale slower, and we're not in rush to scale faster. So of course, like we are in conversation with angels, we onboarded a few angel investors as well. We want to raise enough money so that we can find the exact product market fit, and then eventually raise more to scale. But again, it's the scaling would be a lot slower than any other non-Bitcoin companies out there because we understand it's a long game and we want to make a viable business more like like a, more towards a profitability and sustainability. And I think that's uh, suitable, even though it's the venture scale money is needed to scale consumer products as well, right? But it's a long game, so it's more of focusing on getting revenue and then scaling it slower.
Yeah, so you're doing I think it's a sensible thing to do because it's like you say, we shouldn't starve the business to death because we have a long time horizon. So we should take on stuff to do the quick fixes, but eventually, go into profitability. And you know what I have to say is, um, in my previous jobs and such, I have also spoken, to different kind of startups like biotech, sort of the classical software as a service thing. And profitability was never really a target on their sheet. It was always like, oh yeah, before we go public or something like this, like we'll be profitable by then. Until then, we'll just keep raising these crazy rates. And with Bitcoin businesses, it is different. Those who take on the VC money route, they know we need this to get moving fast and get on board as quickly as possible. But we also want to be as profitable as early on. And this comes with challenges, right? Like stuff like
Right.
high on-chain fees and these things. How have sort of the past couple of months, maybe year been for you? Because the price went up. We've all seen this in terms of fiat. But, working in the industry, if you're working with like fees and transaction costs and these kind of things, it has been a struggle. But what was day-to-day business for you guys?
Yeah, so like fortunately we are too early in the product cycle, so we just had the beta users constantly using the product, and like as I told, most of the people who earn in Bitcoin regularly and they want a reliable tool to liquidate. That's the most of the revenue, and that's not changed. Like at least from the 3 to 4 months of the beta program, that's not changed. Like the initial onboarded users are doing the same amount of transactions till today, even though on-chain fees is high, because as I told, the users get paid in Bitcoin. So again, these challenges will be more visible as we scale, and it'll be more prominent, and especially onboarding new users who are first-time Bitcoiners or wants to buy Bitcoin or just playing around with Bitcoin. That these things will be more evident, especially with on-chain fees, and we are enabling Lightning and having Lightning wallets as well. And self-custody Lightning wallets with high fee environment can be a huge difference in user experience.
I'm kind of curious about moving away from lightning payments and things. I can't help but go into sort of like philosophical questions because that's just who I am, I suppose. But I'm always curious about how people see the world under a Bitcoin standard, or how they think it might change the world, and how will it sort of change our global economy and things. And I don't know if you've had any sort of thoughts or fantasies or ideas, or you can see any sort of direction that is we're going in the future.
Yeah, sure. So Bitcoin stands for freedom, right? Like true self-sovereignty. Like every work you do or any energy spent or time spent on doing work and earning money, that has to be not inflationary, and it has to be the money that you earn and with you. And today, literally, like the money you earn is getting inflated, and you're not even aware. Most of the people is not even aware of that, and it's quite sad that people are not aware that the money value is getting depleted, and it's quite unethical as well, and like that everyone should hold the value they earned, and it should not be taken away from them. And true self sovereignty is something which I think is the last step of human evolution, and the monetary system being, I mean, Bitcoin is a monetary system which has magically landed on this world. To it's truly it's not a coincidence. It's fascinating how it sometimes just blows my mind how Bitcoin can do this, right? Like it just exactly does this, like like helping people to like take their money and value into their self custody, and it's deflationary, and it's peer-to-peer payment system, and it's true self sovereignty, and that is very important. And with true self sovereignty, the life of people change, right? And especially in countries like India, like I see a lot of things around me, because like it's very hard for people to earn up to 2 decades and buy a house for themselves. It was most possible like in the previous decade. Like you earn for 20 years, you save, and you can you can buy a house. But especially in metropolitan city, it's almost like impossible. Like you earn your entire lifetime and you can not buy a house. It's super expensive. And the total wage earned by like people are not in congruence with the expenses. It's all, and there's a lot of people who are like renting the house, and they're going into constant debt, and it touches everything, like the healthcare, like insurances, and it touches everything. So the inflationary aspect of it really affects people's life, and just taking Bitcoin to self custody is going to change that aspect. And for people to take Bitcoin to self custody, that means being self sovereign, and being self sovereign is being able to use that money to buy things. So that's what motivates me, right? Like I want to earn Bitcoin. I want to get paid in Bitcoin, and people ask like, why do you pay fee for buying Bitcoin, and then why do you pay fees for converting it to euro and spending it? What do you want to convert Bitcoin to euro for a short amount of time? Anyways, you're gonna convert back to euro, but it's very hard for me to explain how I do want the euro or INR to exist with me. I don't want to hold any of fiat funds. I want everything to be in Bitcoin. So if I don't end up spending all the funds, I'll end up with a lot of Bitcoin with me, and it also gets more discipline in my life, right? So this true self-sovereignty is something that Bitcoin enables in people, and that's super important.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm starting to see a lot of people on social media, TikTok or Instagram. If you're scrolling through at midnight or something because you can't get to sleep, like I often do, you often see these videos of people saying, "Oh, I've had enough. I haven't got enough to pay my rent. What's going on? I'm moving countries because the UK has gone to pot and we can't afford anything anymore." But they don't really actually understand how the money globally is distributed, right, and how it affects all of us. And I think more and more people out in the more privileged parts of the world, like the UK and the US, are really starting to feel the squeeze at the moment, and sort of like actually feeling a little bit of economic pain. And I think that's when maybe people start to sort of like question the way that it operates around the world, and maybe that is an onboarding opportunity for us to put the right signal out
Right.
there for Bitcoin. And you know, like you were mentioning earlier about being able to buy stuff with Bitcoin, and you were talking about in India that that's not actually currently legal. But at the end of the day, right, it's unstoppable. No one can stop you doing peer-to-peer payments. It's only if they catch you doing that, then there must be obviously some sort of sanction that they want to impose on that, right? Is that something you want to see or want, and that's for us to be starting to pay for things in Bitcoin?
Yeah, for sure. Like paying with Bitcoin is something. that I want to see in India as well. But the regulations are too slow here. It's gonna take some time to catch up, like in Europe and other nations. So, like ideally, when the regulations are here, we would probably start operating in India as well. And like in India, people are fond of gold. They buy gold and they hold gold. So it makes sense for
Mm,
people to like upgrade to Bitcoin because it's more, it's easier. I mean, like not like understanding the technology takes some effort, but then like buying Bitcoin is much more easier, and it's almost in congruence with the intention. They buy gold because
mm,
of the same thing, like because
mm.
of the inflation, and they don't want to keep funds in INR. They want to convert it in gold and stuff like that. But it's in congruence with the same thinking, like they can buy Bitcoin. But I'm very bullish on India being a huge economy which will buy a lot of Bitcoin in future, but it needs some education on schooling and compliance for sure.
Definitely. And what you said is just as a short comment. Um, the beauty about Bitcoin is you can spend it, you can hold it, you can be self-sovereign, and being self-sovereign means that you have your own decisions, right?
Right.
However you spend your Bitcoin, and I think this is somehow a narrative change we're seeing. I mean, there's still the big group of people who go hodl till you die, but I think more and more people go like, maybe I'm okay with donating my Bitcoin. I'm okay with if I need to liquidate them, and have all of these things. And yeah, I think this is some of the nicest stuff you get in the Bitcoin community. How do you go about it? Are you sour if people, get rid of their Bitcoin to, still do the step into the fiat world? Or do you go, hey, it's their money, they can do whatever they want as long as they actually get Bitcoin and save in Bitcoin, I'm happy?
So I think like so it's very it's not data driven, but it's what I feel, right? Like if you want to spend Bitcoin, you will hold more Bitcoin. It's like if you want to buy things with Bitcoin, that means that you want to hold a lot of Bitcoin. So what is hold, right? So you buy Bitcoin and keep it and don't spend it. So how much Bitcoin do you buy? The Bitcoin that you like the amount that you keep aside apart from your spending, right? So it's like you buy the entire amount, like you take the entire earning in Bitcoin, and then you spend a little part of it, and you're still holding it, like holding it, right? So we're just spending a little bit of it. So it's like holding is. Yeah, again, holding Bitcoin is good. So when people spend Bitcoin, I feel good about it because I know they're long-term holders. Like long-term Bitcoin holders usually tend to spend Bitcoin and they want, I don't know, I think, I feel like most of the conversations with our users as well, the reason they use Lightning is because they look for shops in Berlin and other places where they can buy coffee with Bitcoin, right? So these guys are get paid in Bitcoin and they hold Bitcoin from a long time. So I see how like long-term holders wants to spend Bitcoin, and that doesn't mean they do not hold Bitcoin, but they spend a part of it to contribute to the economy, to contribute to the community. Like you spend Bitcoin and it reaches to some other person, and then that person holds Bitcoin at the end of the day. So it's good to spend Bitcoin.
And it feels great spending Bitcoin. Like it's nothing better than buying a coffee with
Right.
Lightning. It's me personally, yeah, I've got my Bitcoin cold storage. I've got my savings stack, if you like, and I've got a little bit of allocation in the wallet that I can use for day-to-day peer-to-peer if I want to. So I like the versatility of it. I can hold some and spend some, and I think that's how I personally use it. But I'm conscious of the time now that we're running towards the end of the show, and you may know that at the end of each of our shows, we do the All Roads Lead Back to Bitcoin challenge, which we challenge our guests on because we want to test out the theory that in fact all roads do lead back to Bitcoin. So what we do is we give our guests a word or a phrase, and somehow you've got to try and relate that word or phrase back to Bitcoin. So are you ready, sir, for your all roads lead
Right.
back to Bitcoin word? So the word Joel and I have come up with was regulation. How does regulation lead back to Bitcoin?
Right. I mean, regulation is not too far from like Bitcoin, right? Like you talk about Bitcoin buy and sell, it's always like uh, you always think about regulations, right? So, regulation giving back to Bitcoin. So, like as I told, like India doesn't have regulations, and then it's hard for me to buy and sell Bitcoin. So I would like I take my funds in Bitcoin 1 month, and the other month I take in INR. The only reason is because it's very hard for me to convert Bitcoin into INR, and it takes like a couple of hours. Bitcoin Binance P2P. So if only the Bringin could be used in India, I would take my entire payments in Bitcoin. Right. So regulations do help me hold more Bitcoin. So that's how regulations are helping my nature of being self-sovereignty, right? At least, of course, I do pay taxes. Like when I move to Estonia or come back to India, I just carry my Bitcoin, the Bitcoin which I pay taxes for. But still, I'm able to buy and sell Bitcoin conveniently because of the regulations. The peer-to-peer is like the peer-to-peer is cause stress inducing because like the community, as I told, as the community grows, it's going to be easier for me to do P2P. Right now doing P2P on Binance is a terrible experience. So regulations kind of aid in Bitcoin adoption at the moment. Like my brother, when I told him about Bitcoin, and he was like, okay, cool, I believe Bitcoin is going to be something huge and I want to buy Bitcoin. And then can I liquidate it when I need it? He asked, and I was like, you can, but it requires some effort, right? So like they're always worried about being able to spend in emergency cases whatever the funds they have. So having regulations will allow Bringin to operate in India. So I think regulations is kind of what enabled us to operate and add value to a lot of users today and Europe. So kind of regulations is ironically adding value to the Bitcoin community.
I always forget that I have to basically unmute the button and not on the mic itself. Prashant, I mean, we don't want to waste any of your precious time because I'm cautious that it's actually still quite late. And I said, you said before that you're used to the time, but we don't want to hold you up any longer. If people have questions about Bringin, if people want to meet you, where is the best place to find you online and get talking with you?
Yeah, Twitter and Telegram, right? So like email, Twitter and Telegram. PC at bringin.xyz is my email, and Twitter is PC Prashanth C123, and same as the Telegram ID. So like they can reach out to me on Twitter. My DMs are open.
Perfect, perfect. And we'll definitely link everything in the show notes below.
Right.
Yeah, mate, thank you so much for your finite time here at Rabbit Hole Stories. It's been a great pleasure delving into your Warren and exploring your rabbit hole. And it's been a fascinating chat. And it's been great to have that insight from India as well. And that's something, I think we could do better at getting the signal out there for. And for everyone that's listening, also thank you for your finite time here at Rabbit Hole Stories. And stay curious, guys.